Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.
I want to talk about this first because I think it's interesting. And I want to start it by saying this conversation that I'm going to have, I don't want to set women's rights back 100 years. I certainly don't. That is not the intention of this conversation. But I think it's an important conversation to be had nonetheless. The law to allow TDs and senators to take maternity leave, and that's women, by the way, in case anybody thinks I'm going to go all PC and say people who are pregnant. No, it's women. Only women have babies. Let's be clear about that. The law to allow TDs and senators to take maternity leave of 26 weeks has been passed. Now, this was slipped through the other night, along with the hate crime bill and a few other things. The issue was up in 2020 when Justice Minister Helen McEntee announced that she was expecting her first child, and an ad hoc arrangement had to be put in place to allow the minister to take maternity leave. At the time, Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin said it did not reflect well on the modern democracy that maternity leave could not be provided for female politicians. However, no immediate legislative changes were made, and another ad hoc arrangement had to be put in place when McEntee was expecting her second child. This is all in her one term of office, obviously. Now, I want to talk about this tonight and find out what you think, because personally, I don't think it should have passed. And that's according to what I hear a lot of people say. Now, you might have a different view on that, and I want to hear your view on it. And I think that if you want to run or serve for 5 years for the people, then you should consider that and realise that it's a commitment for 5 years. It's not like another job. You know, when you go into a job, you go in it with the intention of being in it for life. So when you start any job, your intention is to be in it for life. If you decide to change jobs in a year in, that's fair enough, you can do that. Or change careers, you can do that. That's your choice. But your intention is, this is my job now for the foreseeable future. Whereas when you go into politics and you're an elected representative, you know it's only for 5 years. If you get re-elected in 5 years by the people, well and good. You're serving the people. That's the whole idea of being a politician. You're there to represent the people who voted for you. So, for example, if I had been elected, which I wasn't, in the European elections, I would have gone to Europe for 5 years. I would have been there to represent the people who voted for me. To hell with the rest of them, the ones who voted for me for 5 years. So, if you run for office and you were voted in, should you then have to serve the 5 years? I mean, I understand without women, none of us would exist. Because biologically, they're the only ones who can have children. And that's it. Nobody else can have them, only women. It is a disadvantage to them when it comes to a career, a huge disadvantage. But what I hate to see when it comes to women's rights is putting more barriers in the way of women. And I think these kind of things do put barriers in. I think they, rather than having the positive effect they're meant to have, which is democracy and isn't this great, isn't this women's rights, I think it has a negative effect. Because I think people view that in a different way and they go, well, what's the point in voting for her? She's going to be having babies and taking time off. She won't be there to represent me. So who filled in for Helen McEntee? Simon Harris, wasn't it, I think? He filled in as Minister for Justice while she was off. First term, certainly. So those who voted for Helen McEntee at that particular time 5 years ago voted for Helen McEntee because they liked her. They liked her personality. They liked what she represented. They may not like it now, but I certainly liked it at the time, what she represented. But they didn't get Helen McEntee for the first year. They got Simon Harris. And the second time she got pregnant, I'm not too sure actually. I'll ask AJ to check, but I think it may have been Simon Harris again filled in for the second time as Justice Minister. I'm not too sure. But anyway, so that's not what they got. So should it be a case that when you run for election, no matter what age you are, that you make a decision, okay, for the next 5 years, I'm going to put my own life on hold somewhat, my own decisions around life and children and everything else on hold. Obviously, if you have children, you have to look after them. That's fair enough. But you've got to put your life on hold to some degree to serve the people for 5 years. Isn't that what politicians do? So let me know what you think, by the way. Do you really believe that politicians should have maternity leave? They didn't up to now. And the reason they didn't was for the very reason I've just explained. That it is a part-time job. When I say a part-time job, it's only for 5 years. Unless you're good enough and the people believe you're good enough and they re-elect you. Heather Humphreys, by the way, thank you. Heather Humphreys was the one who filled in second time around. So So let me know what you think. The number is 087 188 0008. I have a feeling when I go to Lily, she's going to be just laughing. Lily, hi, how are you?
Hi, Niall.
How are you doing, Lily?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Now, Lily, what do you think of this? I mean, I understand maternity leave, is a wonderful provision that's there for women, during their careers, so they can continue to have children without financially losing out too much. I get it, and it's brilliant. But should politicians be getting maternity leave?
Well, it's only fair if every other worker in the country, if other women are working ordinary jobs and they get maternity leave, why shouldn't the politicians get maternity leave?
But it's not like every other job, is it?
It's not like every other job, but it's a job, and as you said there, only women can have babies, and I think it's completely up to them if they want to have, and they should be allowed to have maternity leave, of course.
See, I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place on this one, because as much as I don't want to set women's rights back, because I absolutely believe in women's rights and I believe that women should be equal in the workplace, but unfortunately, when it comes biologically, women are not the same in the workplace. Women can have children. Men don't obviously have children, and they don't need time off to have children, although they do get paternity leave. But here's the thing. When you're elected, it's you that's elected by the people who voted for you. It's not somebody else to fill in for you that's elected.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. I understand what you're saying. It's a very delicate subject because it's a reality. It's if these women are as good as men, and if they need to have time off for having their babies, it's only fair they should.
And you don't think that's an issue, even if they're a politician, that it makes a difference? It's just
no, I don't think it makes much difference because if you go back, Queens years ago had big families, and it didn't do anything to their.
Yeah, but there was a difference in a queen. A queen is a queen until the day they die. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not a job for a certain period of time, and a queen is not elected by the people.
That's true. You're right.
You know what I mean?
Sorry, Niall.
Yeah. I'm not trying to kind of catch you out on an argument. I'm just saying it's a different situation. It's this idea that somebody is only a politician for 5 years, unless, of course, they're re-elected. They're only a politician for 5 years. So for 5 years, the person who votes for you is saying to you, I want you to directly represent me in this country for 5 years. Whereas they don't. If they're going to have 2 or 3 children at that time, well, they're going to be AWOL for, some of that time.
Yes, but they can still do their work.
But they don't. They take maternity leave.
Right.
They don't do any work. If they take maternity leave, they take maternity leave. They're at home. That's it. There's somebody else is in replacing them.
That's true. Yes, there is it's kind of a delicate situation. I really don't. I feel lost here.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay, Lily. Let me just go to Bernie as well. Bernie, hi. How are you?
I'm grand, Niall. How are you tonight?
Good. Lily is kind of on the fence there a little bit, but she does agree they should be treated the same as everybody else. But in saying that, I don't necessarily agree.
Okay, well, Niall, my opinion is I got 3 months maternity leave when I was back in the 80s. That was all we were given, 12 weeks. And I feel that they should only be given 12 weeks.
Okay.
Theirs should be at a different pace because like we did 3 months and we handed our babies over and then we had to go back to work. Because we were nurses, they couldn't have replaced us. We weren't being replaced. So we had, there was there may be an agency nurse if you could get one. Back in the day, you were so you went back. It was only 3 months and that was the limit. And I think these ladies who are in the Dáil, they should be given 3 months maternity leave and then back to work because they're doing a job. They're running our country. And they have a responsibility to the people. I think it's the lady in New Zealand. Didn't she go back to work after 3 weeks or something?
Oh, that was Mary Poppins or whatever her name was. Yeah, I remember.
Arlene or Ardeen.
Jacinta Ahern or Arden or whatever her name was.
She went back in COVID, yeah. She went back and she
now, in fairness, she had a bit of a screw loose, in fairness. So, I mean, let's not use her as an example.
You saying ours don't?
Well, this is true. But here's the thing. Look, we haven't had a huge amount of examples of it here in Ireland. Obviously, Helen McEntee did it twice during her term of office. She had 2 babies. And by the way, well done to her. I'm delighted for her, and I hope her and her family are very happy. I'm not having a go at her personally. But what I'm saying is, people went out and voted for her, as a minister to represent them in their constituency. They didn't vote for whoever, Heather Humphreys or Simon Harris or, whoever fills in. They didn't vote for them. They voted for her. And is it a lot to ask somebody, if you're running for election, to give up 5 years of your life? Like, when I ran for election, I had to seriously think about the next 5 years of my life, right? The podcast, everything else. A lot of sacrifices I'd have to make, to do that. Now, I obviously tried to incorporate the podcast into it and all sorts of things. So I was kind of trying to work everything out. But my number one priority for 5 years was I had to be in work. I had to go to Europe at least 4 days a week. I had to represent the people who voted for me. That was my priority, right?
And I respect that. However, and I don't mean I respect, Niall, you're a man. And these girls who are in power, are in the government at the moment, they're in their 30s. And, you ask them to wait 5 years, that could bring some of them into the early 40s.
But is that not a choice you make? Is that the decision you make if you want it?
Yes, it is. But I'm just saying, currently in the climate we have, all the ladies that are in there are either, of childbearing years, if I put it like that.
Yeah.
And, I think that they should have a shorter maternity leave than the public service say, where they get nearly a year off. They should be given a shorter one to reflect that they are, sticking to the rules, which is they're running our country for us. And they can't be gone too long, because yourself, you're caught up with a newborn baby. Your job goes out the window for the time you're off.
And I get that. But then maybe being a politician at that particular time in your life wasn't the right thing to do. Because being a politician is a privilege, isn't it? It's a privilege to be voted and elected as a politician.
And the thing about it is, we're going back to...
And you're paid well for that privilege, by the way, so I can just point out.
Yeah. But as well as that, Niall, the mature person has been left out of the loop. The people with the experience have not been they're not encouraged to go into politics. There's so many people out there, the likes of the late Mary, Mary, the one that just died recently. Mary O'Rourke.
Mary O'Rourke, wonderful politician, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. She gave her time. That's what we want back in this country. Not these ones that are, hopping around on, our private jet, going around from A to B, pillar to jack, turning up on a street and, shaking a couple of laws and off they went. We need people who are on the ground like Mary O'Rourke, who's not going to let their people down. That's what we want to see. But
is taking, in your 5-year term of office, which is only 5 years, taking 2 sets of maternity leave, essentially, is that letting your people down? Is that letting your constituents who voted for you down? Is it?
Well, personally, I would, if it was me, I'd either have the children before I go into the power. I would have my
that's
children.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And by the way, I don't want to see. I don't want to see another. To me, this is going to be another barrier for women, because I don't believe these kind of things sometimes are positive. Like, for example, somebody had suggested a while ago that in Russia they were giving away period leave, right? And that we should do it here in Ireland as well. And I went, no. Or breastfeeding leave. And I go, no. Menopause leave. No. Because all of those things, they put a barrier in the way of people hiring women. I don't want to see those barriers being put up, these kind of invisible barriers put up. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, women, it's that's how our clocks tick. We have periods, we get pregnant, we have, HRT patches, we have hysterectomies, we have breastfeeding. It's part of who makes us a woman. And I mean, we want to be part and be equal in society. We don't want to be treated any different. I don't, anyway. And so, if I had to breastfeed my kids, I had to do it after a 12-hour shift. My milk came in whenever I needed to feed my child. I worked it out. Do you know what I mean? So these, I mean, if I was running for, say, a management job in the hospital, I wouldn't do it if I thought I was going to go on maternity leave. I'd wait, have my kids first, and then go and get myself educated to the level I'd need to be to be a manager. Do you know what I mean?
We'll stay there. Well, hang on, stay there. Let me just go to Jessica as well. Jessica, hi, how are you?
Hiya.
How you doing? Jessica, I mean, I'm all for women and men being treated equally in society, and that's the way it should be. I don't want to see barriers being put up, to prevent women getting jobs or for people to have these kind of invisible views of what women should and shouldn't be. But is this a bad idea or a good idea to introduce maternity leave in politics?
The way I see it is you have a choice. If you want to go into politics, and you don't have children, but you're planning on it, it's not the job for you. That's how I feel. Because if I vote for a certain individual, I don't want them just to feck off, have a baby, and then have the shoes filled in by someone else that I didn't put a vote in for. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not.
But then, I suppose the argument then from Bernie and people who agree with it is then you're not treating women and men the same. You know what I mean? Because I know men can't have babies.
It's not about the gender. It's not about the gender. It's about the occupation. This isn't just a regular 9-to-5 job. You're voted in to represent people. You can't do much representation if you're off having a baby.
It's a fair point, Bernie. You know, how can you represent people if you're having a baby and you're taking...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Either, I mean, if I was going for a job, say, as a management, I would have my children first and then train to be a manager because I want to have kids.
Yeah, but that's different. That's different. That's an occupation. That's employment, or it comes under employment law. That's a completely different situation. We're talking about a very specific occupation here, which is
and a privilege for the people to be represented. But then you're going to choose, I'm going to do something for me. Now, hang on while this other person steps into my shoes and fills in my office. Like, no, that's not what the role is for.
Absolutely, I understand what you're saying, Jessica. That's a very good point. I just feel myself that they should, if they're going to have a baby during their 5 years in office, they should be given 3 months maternity leave. End of story, because we need them on the ground. We, as you rightly said, we voted them in to represent us, not put in somebody else and be gone for nearly 3 years of the 5 year service. They need to have given them 3 months.
They should have just, to me, it sounds like planning your life better. Like, if you're a politician, I'd like to give you the benefit of a doubt. You're a smart person. You can work out a calendar and work out a map on how to get around it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you have children, if you want to go into politics, make sure you have your children a good few years before you step into the job.
I mean, how did female politicians have children in the past without maternity leave? They managed.
Mary Rose, they all went back to. She had.
They all went back to work, didn't they?
They went straight back after 6 weeks, I think.
Mm. Yeah, they probably took time off, and they could probably use sick leave, I suppose. Maybe, I don't know what they had to use before.
They have a lot of holidays. Like, they're off at the drop of a hat most of the time.
Well, they're off for the whole summer. They're like kids. You know what I mean? They're off for the dog closes like schools for the summer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so if they're going to have a baby, have it in the summer, and then be back to work like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Plan your ovulation chart or whatever chart you have to plan, and shove it in there, and that's it. Have the bun ready to.
Well, there's a well-known fact, which I think is really wrong. School teachers, what they do is they plan their pregnancy so their baby is born in September. That's a well-known fact, by the way, that they purposely plan it, and the reason for that is they get the summer holidays and they get the maternity leave on top of it. So they're
I must have been slow. I must have been the slowest person on the deck. I had mine in January. February.
So it'll be no use of your school teacher if you have your baby in June. She'll get the time off anyway, you know what I mean? So,
I can attest to that. There was a French teacher in my school. I swear to God, we were there thinking, is she pregnant again? Without doubt, we'd be first day at the desk, we'd see the bump, and we're like, oh, here we fucking go again.
Yeah, September. My own son, I think, and one of my sons, one of his teachers, 3 years in a row was pregnant, and she was out on maternity leave, and they had temporary teachers in, which I thought was, look, I'm well done to the teacher, and I'm happy for them and everything else, for happy family, because I encourage people to have children. Our next topic is actually going to be encouraging people to have children. But there is a casualty to that. The casualty are the kids, obviously, who have to deal with temporary teachers. But anyway, sorry, getting back, but look, they're in employment, they're entitled to it, it's employment law, and I completely agree with it, and I'm all for women's rights. But I do believe politicians maybe are different. Stay there, John, or stay there, Jessica. Let me just go to John as well. John, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Bernie made some good points there. I wouldn't be I'm all for more women in politics, but the right women, the proper women, that when they do go into politics, the whole idea is that you get elected by the people to serve the people. But unfortunately, a lot of them are just there to make up the gender quotas, this is the in thing now. Make sure you have the gender quotas. You have to have the gender quota. I wouldn't be putting up barriers. If a girl goes into politics, we say she might be a councillor for a while or whatever, maybe even first time running, not a councillor, but going for a TD, and she's 28 years of age. I wouldn't be putting up barriers like that it's almost saying like look, you're in politics now, you can't have kids, or you can't have them for the first 5 years, or supposing like she's elected in for the second term in the Dáil, that's 10 years. Is she supposed to put her pregnancies on hold for 10 years?
No, hold on. But we've had female politicians in the past before we had this legislation, and they have managed to have children and get back to work, as Bernie said, reasonably quickly. So that's nobody's suggesting you can't have children. But the idea that you would be treated as if under employment law, as if it was a job, it's not a job. It's a privilege to work for the people, isn't it? It's a different. You're not getting the job at an interview. Your interview is the ballot box.
Well, I suppose it's a job for 5 years, and you have a chance of maybe retaining that job for another 5 or 20 years or 30 years, whatever. How long was Mary O'Rourke in the Dáil?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, the thing is, in the private sector, you see. I want to do this right. In the private sector, you can get an interview, right, for a high-profile job, a woman, and she can be pregnant, but she doesn't relay this to the boss.
No, she doesn't have to.
And then no, exactly. But then all of a sudden she gets the job, and next thing she notices she's pregnant, and then she's out for a while, but they still hold open that position. I know somebody that worked in the private sector, and like she got pregnant. They held open her job for her, like somebody else slotted in temporary, right? She wasn't 12 months back when she was pregnant again, right? So she was out again, and they had to this was in the media, and they had to cover her ass again. And after that, then she got she was headhunted by another organisation, right? And she just walked off, after they keeping that job open, for 2 sessions for her.
By the way, I think it's wrong of people to abuse maternity leave like that. I mean, there should be a level of understanding between employers, because employers have to be catered for as well. Yeah, but I don't disagree with maternity leave. Maternity leave is vital, so as women have equality in the workplace. I get that under employment law, but being a politician is not normal employment. It's a different situation. You're not working for an employer; you're working for the people.
No, but I mean, the thing is, she's only, for the first couple of months, you can do the job as a woman TD, right? Then on the latter stages of the pregnancy, obviously you have to rest up and everything. Then you deliver the child, right? Then there's another rest period again, right? But in the meantime, the constituency office rolls on. There's a pairing system, like when Helen McEntee, when her first kid, Holly Cavan, so the Social Democrats, she paired with her then as regards voting and stuff like that. So, I mean, there is a system to work around it. So I mean, as I said, look, I welcome kids. I don't care how they come about, as long as they're born.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more in relation to that, because we need to encourage more people to have children, and I get that. And I don't want to put any barriers up to, against women getting jobs, particularly when it comes to politics. But I don't believe that this does any favours for women. I think it has quite the opposite effect, by the way. When you start introducing too many laws that are favourable towards women, I think it then becomes a negative thing for employing women, and I don't want to see that happening.
On the other side, now maybe to encourage people to come in, because a lot of women just won't go into politics because they think it's with all the abuse, online abuse and everything, and threats and everything and the whole lot, and so it might encourage people, rather.
Well, I don't encourage people to be threatening people or abusing people online, but certainly when you go into politics, you've got to have a bit of a thick skin. I mean, it is that type of job.
That's a good. Well, to me, you shouldn't have to have a thick skin if you've done the job.
Well, not necessarily. As a politician, you're never going to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time.
Oh, you're not, no. But on the part, the president cropped there, and what went before about the confidence and supply.
The president and government are an exception to the rule, I think, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, but hang on. Let me go to Jan as well. Stay there, please, Jessica, if you can, and Bernie. Let me go to Jan. Jan, hi, how are you?
Hi, Niall. How are you doing?
Good.
First thing can I say is that Jacinta Ardern was one of the best political leaders. Oh,
did you like her? Leader. Oh, I didn't like her at all.
Oh, well, don't say she's a screw loose. That's really
I know. I thought she was like Mary Poppins, the way she went on.
No, she was superb.
I know. She was kind of like Marmite. She was either people really liked her or really despised her. She was there was nothing in the middle, But see, you probably wouldn't like me then, because I liked Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, but Margaret Thatcher also was a person. You're talking about Mary O'Rourke earlier. Like, Mary O'Rourke's career was facilitated because her husband stayed at home, as did Margaret Thatcher's. Yeah. So if you look at people like, their role models for sure and their trailblazers, but they were enabled by their husbands. So this is turning into a conversation blaming women around it, which I don't actually think is the right thing.
Okay.
If you look at Scandinavian countries, which has fantastic maternity leave and paternity leave and all that kind of thing, society enables parents, whether they're male or female, it enables parents to live both their professional lives and their personal lives.
And I'm all for that, Jan. I'm all for every bit of legislation we can bring in to make the workplace equal for men and women and make it equally available for men and women. I'm absolutely all for that. But what I find is that when you start introducing too much legislation, that then becomes a negative barrier. Like they've asked recruitment agencies in the UK, they sent out a questionnaire, and a lot of them said that under the counter, they would go to, the employers would go to recruitment agencies and say, don't send me somebody of childbearing age. Now, that's illegal, by the way. Can I just point out? You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah,
but,
I know that.
But they still do it. And during interviews, you see men doing interviews, or women possibly as well, looking for the sign of somebody might be engaged. If they're engaged, probably going to be having children soon. Do I really want somebody here? So that's not what I want to see in society, where people are looking at women like that. But employment law is different to politics. So when we're talking about politics, it's not a job for an employer, for a private employer or a public employer for that matter. You're working for the people for only 5 years.
Yeah, but politicians have to reflect society. And society is not made up of all men or all women of a certain age who are either gone past having families or putting their families on hold. Like, there's a huge issue at the moment with fertility, secondary infertility.
We're going to be talking about that after the 10 o'clock, by the way, tonight.
And that's a whole different conversation, but it is dreadful. Like, when I listened to the two ladies earlier who spoke about giving somebody 3 months maternity leave, when I had my children, I returned to work at 4 months and at 5 months, respectively, for my two children. When I look at people returning now who might take up to a year's maternity leave or whatever, like, if we were to go back to the days of 3 months maternity leave and whatever, we're going back to the dark ages.
I don't think Bernie meant that for everybody. She was talking specifically about people working in politics.
Yeah, but politics is an extremely demanding career. It's very difficult to entice women to go into politics. And we need a balance so that we're getting balanced views, we're getting balanced input, we're getting different discussions happening. So you need to actually encourage women, to go into politics. They're underrepresented as it is.
Well, hang on. Let Bernie respond to that. Okay, Bernie, is that
going to go against that?
Is that a fair point, Bernie? You were the one who said 3 months would be adequate for politicians. Jan is saying absolutely not. It needs to reflect society.
But I mean, it was a reflection of the society I live in. Like, I got 3 months maternity leave, and I was in a very responsible job, and I would not let my other colleagues down. So I took my 3 months maternity leave, and I went back into the workplace. Whether I was fit or not, I went in and I did my work, but that was expected of me as a nurse, to carry out my job. And I was employed by the Eastern Health Board to do that job, and I had a permanent job, and I was very lucky, so I was happy to do it. The people who are affected in power today, who are in society, the women in politics today, they have plenty of time. They have people running after. They don't have the same stresses as I feel we did back in the 80s. And so I think 3 months maternity leave with their summer holidays is adequate, because they're getting a fantastic salary and they get time off, and they've secretaries, and they have other minions to do their work as well. So they're not doing all the work, the heavy lifting at the top.
See, I suppose, Jan, the point is, the
world has changed since the 80s.
Oh, absolutely. But Jan, the point is that being a politician for 5 years is like a subcontractor taking on a job for 5 years. It's a temporary contract. It's a 5-year contract where you're working for the people. And the reason why there was never maternity leave introduced personally, we didn't have too many females in politics if we go back a long time ago. But the reason they still didn't introduce it in 2020 after Helen McEntee got pregnant on her first child was that they didn't want to see that as some sort of leverage, or they didn't want to see it as some disadvantage to voting for women. Because as a voter, if somebody votes for somebody to be in politics, be they male or female, they want them to be there for the 5 years to represent them, not somebody replacing them, for 6 months of that period, or for 12 months if they have 2 children or whatever it is. So isn't that the point?
No, but the point is, Niall, that you definitely vote for individual politicians, but you also vote for a party. So if you vote for, Simon Harris, you're also voting for Fine Gael, et cetera, et cetera. So from that point of view, the party politics are going to continue. The party policies are going to continue. And, the votes will be maintained in the Dáil because there is a pairing arrangement. Like in somebody's career...
hang on both of you just a second. Sorry, Jessica, what did you say to Jan that time, Jessica?
It just seems like a bit of a slap in the face to your constituents, though. Like, if you're going into politics, you get pregnant, you're out for however long you're out for.
6 months, minimum, yeah.
Like, I'd be there thinking, well, I voted you. I didn't vote for someone else to come in and sit in your chair. Like, I feel like I'd be getting slapped in the face by that politician.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, sorry, Jan. Did you get the point Jessica makes that she said she voted for a person, not for somebody else to sit in the chair?
Yeah, no, I get that. But, I mean, we won't encourage women to go into politics if they're going to have to put their reproductive plans on hold for 5 years, or as John said, for 10 years if they get re-elected. Like, that is just not a fair ask.
That's just sadly how the cookie crumbles with being in politics. That's sadly it's true fact. You're either going to have
there's no other job that applies
or do it beforehand.
There's no other job that applies to. It's completely discriminatory.
Because politician isn't any other job. I said that before. This isn't your regular 9 to 5. This is you getting voted in by people as a representative. It's not a regular job.
Yeah.
It certainly wouldn't inhibit me from voting for a woman to think she might be going on maternity leave. I think that's dreadful.
It certainly wouldn't inhibit me voting for a woman either. But up to this point, we haven't had that situation, Jan, and it doesn't seem to have really bothered too many people up to this point. We have had women in politics over the years who've had children and managed, and obviously they returned to work a lot quicker than 6 months because they wouldn't have got 6 months maternity leave. They would have had to take sick pay. That's the way it would have had to be done up to now. And they kind of managed. I suppose the reason they didn't want to bring it in was they didn't want to see another barrier there. And that's what I said earlier on. I'm all for women's rights. I want more women's rights. I hate to see a glass ceiling. I hate to see barriers, against women, progressing in the workplace just because biologically they're the ones that have children, or they're the ones who breastfeed, or they're the ones who have menopause or have periods, or whatever it is, that women's bodies are a lot more complicated than men's. So I certainly don't want to see those barriers there. But I think the more rules you bring in, I think sometimes that can be quite a negative thing, for people unconsciously and subconsciously employing women, and sometimes it can have the wrong effect.
But you're setting apart women politicians for having children, when in fact male politicians add to their families all the time, and there isn't two hoots about it. High-profile people, Boris Johnson, Tony Blair, they've all added to their families and been celebrated as being leaders doing that. You look at somebody like Jacinta Ardern, and she did it, while she was a prime minister of a country, and admitted afterwards that the toll of everything she had to deal with, including being a mother, was part of the reason that she gave it up. So, the whole environment isn't enabling for women to be politicians. Yes, we need them to represent us, to have, different voices at the table to make different decisions. So,
do me a favour, Jan. Please stay with me if you can. Thank you very much indeed, Bernie. I appreciate you coming on tonight. Keep texting, keep WhatsApping. The number is 087 188 0008. Jan absolutely believes that was the right thing to do to bring in legislation for maternity leave for politicians. I've heard people disagree with it and agree with it, because obviously being a politician is not a regular job. Jessica's right in that regard. It is the one job where you are voted for by the people. It's the only job where you're voted for by the people. And for that reason, people believe that you should be there for the full 5 years. Now, I suppose nobody's suggesting that you put your reproductive life on hold, because that's what John, I think, suggested, and Jan said that as well. I mean, there has been female politicians up to now, and they've had children and worked around it. But do you believe that it was fair or was right to bring in maternity leave? Some people believe so, some people believe not. Let me know what you think. The number is 087 188 00. Well, I seem to have lost Jan there. Jessica, stay with us. Let me go to Clint if I can. Clint, hi, how are you?
Oh, good. Can you hear me?
I can, Clint, yes. Driving a car, I believe. Can you do me a favour? Unfortunately, the speaker is playing back into the phone.
Hang on, give me a sec. I'll pull over.
Oh, okay. I don't want you to be in an accident now, Clint. Be careful. Be careful if you can. Do it safely, obviously.
Safely, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. Just give me a sec.
All right, thanks very much, Nate. Can't beat a bit of live radio, sure you can't. Please don't do anything silly. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Clint.
Yeah, I do believe that if they get pregnant, they should get the full 5 years if they have that on the maternity leave. And the reason being is stressful enough being a woman in a job, but when you're a TD, you're supposed to be representing your consistency and the people in the consistency. You're not doing that when you're out maternity leave. We're talking about women's health. We're talking about the pregnancy itself, the child itself, and we're talking about their mental health and postnatal depression, all that. All that has an effect on it. But when you're like the Minister for Justice, like Helen McEntee, think about all the legislation she tried to rush in when she came back, and it had to blown up in her face.
Well, you're talking about the hate speech bill, obviously.
Well, not only the hate speech bill, there's loads of bills and all that have been coming in. You know what I mean? And we have to look at it this way. We have to think about people's mental health when they're making decisions on these. They're affecting people.
With the greatest respect, hold on, Clint. There's some powerful women out there that have had children throughout the history of Ireland. There's been very many female politicians who've done a very good job, and they've had children. Don't just write women off just because they have children.
I'm not writing them off, and you can't say that you know exactly what went on in relationships. Just because you see something on the outside doesn't know what happened.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what's going on in their own relationship as long as they're doing their job. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't know how that's having an effect on them in that job. It's not just affecting their life; it's affecting everybody's life around them.
Because of the decisions they make.
Exactly. And
but I could argue that about men too. I mean, there are men out there.
I can understand that, but we're talking about pregnancy. Mm-hmm. We're talking about pregnancy.
So what should happen if a female politician gets pregnant? If a female politician gets pregnant and is having a baby? Currently, up to now anyway, they would have had to take a little bit of time off, just sick, had the baby and come back to work as soon as they possibly could.
Yeah, I think they should get the full allotment as a TD. And there should be a by-election where they're from.
Right. So in other words, they should be just paid off?
Well, no, it's not really being paid off. They're getting pregnant, so they're getting their maternity leave, but give them the 5 years.
So I just give them the whole 5 years off and then just have a by-election and re-elect somebody else?
Yeah.
And what, they're out of a job then?
Well, they're not out of a job. Well, you have to get re-elected in 5 years' time if people want to re-elect.
But that's not going to encourage women to run into politics, is it?
It's not a job for life.
No, but hold on. See, now we're gone completely to the extreme. That's certainly not going to encourage women to want to go into politics, is it?
How is it not? They're going to get paid for the 5 years anyway.
Yeah, but maybe it's not always about the money. People just want to be in the job because they, like, for example, when I ran for politics, when I ran for Europe for the election, it wasn't about the money. Don't get me wrong, that was a bonus. But it was about being there for 5 years and representing the people. That's what it was about, not the money.
Well, you're not going to be there for 5 years. You're going to be out maternity leave for a year of it.
Well, it's 6 months. Yeah.
Well, if you had 2 kids, you're out for a year.
2 kids are out for a year. Yeah, possibly.
You know what I mean? So who's representing your people from where you're from?
Somebody else is standing in for you, yeah.
No. They stand in as your role as a minister. They don't stand in your consistency.
No.
Who stands in for your consistency? So if you have someone that's looking for their scoliosis treatment, who are they contacting?
So your theory is, so I'm a female politician, I get elected, and say 6 months in, I get pregnant. As far as you're concerned, then I should step away from the job and there should be a by-election and somebody else should replace me for the next 5 years.
Yep. And then when the 5 years' time, you can go for it again.
That's a bit stiff, Jessica, isn't it? Now that's taking it to the extreme. There you go.
Well, it's not extreme. I just think it's looking after the woman.
Okay, well, hang on. Let Jessica respond. Jessica?
I think that is a bit of a hurdle. Like I said, like Bergen said before, they have their long recess in the summer. Like, that's plenty of time to look at your calendar and work around it. But... Mm-hmm. I mean, if at that same time they do choose to get pregnant during their terms, then that's just on them. Well,
people don't always choose to get pregnant, by the way. You know, sometimes pregnancy is unplanned.
Well, if you plan it wrong, or you get your times wrong, and you end up getting pregnant halfway through your term, then that's just, bad planning on your behalf, really. So I wouldn't go as far as to say
you have to kind of resign and step down until the next election. Otherwise, that'll be the end of it. But look, I understand the point Clint's making, but that would be to the extreme. It certainly wouldn't be the view held by most. Okay, but let me thank you for that, Clint. Let me just go to Amanda. Amanda, hi, how are you?
Hi, Nine, how are you?
Good. Amanda, yeah, I mean, look, this has caused a bit of a conversation this week, with people agreeing and disagreeing, because obviously being a politician is a very different job to an average job because you're elected by the people. Mm-hmm. Should they have all the same rights, including maternity leave?
Of course they should, because as a job at the end of the day, I know you're representing the people, and No, I just want to call me there. I don't know your last the guy that was just speaking.
Clint, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. Clint.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I just wanted to say something to him. There, you see, the thing is, you cannot just tell a woman that is in a job that because you're pregnant and you have a baby, that is it. Your job is gone.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't agree with that either. No, that's.
That is insane because, look, pregnancy does not make you incapable of doing anything. The 9 months stuff, I work all through to my 9 months when I was pregnant with my kids, like during my childbearing period. I worked all through up to 9 months and I had my maternity. And even when you are, representing the people, you don't need to be in an office or in a door. That's why you have online these days. You can work from home. You can attend meetings online. Those important meetings that you have to be there. Your presence is there. It can be, that is why you can do this online,
Mm-hmm.
There are ways around it. So if you have to be there, you can get a minder. Your husband can, cut in for you and cover up and you go do your job. So why do you have to leave what you love to do? Representing the people, running in any public office because you love to do it. It's something that you love to do because it takes a lot of your time.
Well, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be elected. Yes,
exactly. So why will you give that up because you're having a baby, you're having a family? I think that is, coming from a man. I think that is.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't agree with that aspect of it either, or Clint's opinion on it. But in saying that's his view of it as well. But in relation to the standard maternity leave of 6 months, do you agree with that applying to politicians as well?
Yes, I think so. Why not? It's the same thing. If she needs more time, then she can ask for it. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe health reasons or.
But what you're doing now, Amanda, is you're treating it like an ordinary job. It's not like an ordinary job. It's a very different job. You don't go for an interview for this job. You're not working for an employer. Your employer is the people. So it is a very different type of job.
Yeah, it is nice. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. You're having a family, so you need your maternity leave. So you need your 6 months. If you think you need more time, ask for it. And during this period, the system has to provide a way how you can still, do your job, maybe in a different way, while you still take care of your family. How do we encourage women and young women, for that matter, to go into these roles? If we don't make provisions for them, we have to, and that is why we are encouraging more women.
And I agree with you that there should be provisions made because obviously
they have to be.
Yeah, women have wombs. We get that, and I understand that men don't. So that's a disadvantage to women, of course, when they want to continue their career, okay, or they want to progress their career. And I understand how that disadvantage existed in society. Thankfully, it doesn't really exist in employment law anymore. But the problem is, when you start introducing too many things, I think that then becomes a barrier. It actually has the opposite effect. Because, for example, I mentioned earlier on that people were talking about breastfeeding leave and period leave and menopause leave. And if you start introducing all of those things, that becomes then a barrier for employers to say, well, I don't want somebody who's going to be taking all of that time off. That's not really what I want. So I'll just hire a bloke instead. And I don't want to see a society that just hires a bloke instead. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, let me say something. Look, me personally, I don't really, consent with the period leave and stuff.
They do that in Russia, I think. Period leave.
That is something that comes with being a woman. So I don't think you need a special leave to be a woman. You know what I mean? But coming back to maternity leave, or when you are a public figure or public representative, I think to encourage more women to take these roles. Okay, this is 2024. This thing is supposed to have been in place long time ago. We don't need to be discussing this particular issue right now because, other countries have it. Like there are prime ministers that are female in other countries. If they have their kids, they go for their maternity leave and they have an assistant that step in for them in that period. Okay, let me say Ireland has not gotten to that. but there are means we can have online, process whereby they can engage in meetings as well while they are on their maternity leave.
Well, that wouldn't be too bad if they did that, but obviously when some people on maternity leave wouldn't be engaging at all. Jessica, Amanda makes a point that, look, it is 2024. We have to be fair to women. We want more women in politics, and if we're going to continue not to give women those rights, the same rights as they would in employment law, well, you're not going to encourage women to go into politics then.
Oh, I get it. We do need to convince more women to get into politics. I'm 100% with that. But like I said, we can't put being a politician on the same level as any other job, because at the end of the day, it isn't. It just simply isn't the same as any other job. It's a privilege. It's an honour. You're given this honour. And if you have to put having kids on hold, then that's just the way it is.
So what are you abusing that honour then by taking advantage of it or something? Are you abusing that honour by then having children in the middle of it?
I think so, yes. Like I said, you vote for politician A, not for politician B to step in when you decide to go have a baby.
No, I don't think that is right. I don't think, because it's an honor and it's a privilege, I don't think you have to now choose between making a family, and serving the people. That is not right. Making a family is natural.
It won't be the job for someone then if they decide the family is more important. Being a politician, it clearly isn't the job for you then.
So in other words, you just rule out being in politics if you're going to have babies. That kind of rules out most women then, doesn't it, Jessica? You know what I mean? Because most women have babies.
It does, but like I said, it's not an average job. It's not an everyday job. And the fact that people are trying to explain it as such is actually baffling to me.
Sorry, Amanda?
Look at it. I don't know if you look at the statistic of women that's actually in politics right now, most of them don't have kids. They don't have kids. They have, just like what your next the leader was speaking and saying, they have to choose, between having a family and representing the people, which I think that is wrong. Okay, they might maybe when they're young and they are just like, okay, I'm going to do this, and they choose representing the people and don't have family. Maybe when they are 50, they're going to regret it because they need family. They need, oh my God, I wish I have my own kids.
I'm curious to see the stats on that, and I must actually look it up. It's more than I can just do right now at this minute in time. But powerful women in the world, big CEOs, prime ministers, people who've been elected, people who have made it to the top, being multimillionaires, billionaires, whatever, of successful companies. How many of them have had children? I'm going to guess that the vast majority didn't have a lot of children. I'm probably going to guess, because those kind of things can get in the way of a career. I know they can. For both men and women, by the way, but primarily for women because they're the ones that have the children. Amanda, listen, thank you very much indeed. You make a very good argument. Jessica, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate both your arguments. I appreciate everybody's opinion on everything, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Opinions.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.